So some of you might recognize me from a few years back. My name is Summer. I'm 24 and I have decided to come back to YouTube for a good cause. I wanted to talk to you about a rare condition that I unfortunately suffer with, and I want to raise awareness about it. And I guess we'll just start from the beginning. I don't know why I'm not wearing my glasses. I can't see anything. And excuse the cat if you can hear him. He really doesn't like being locked out. Stevie, you want to say hi? Let me get Fat Boy. So to begin, I have what's called MALS, and that stands for median arcuate ligament syndrome. It's also known as Dunbar syndrome, celiac artery compression syndrome, celiac axis syndrome, celiac trunk compression syndrome, and Harjola-Mirable syndrome. And all of those silly names break it down into a very simple syndrome. I was doing some research, and I will link all of my references down below. I'm not going to annotate them like I'm writing a paper, like I'm back in college, so they'll all be down below. But a really good definition I found was a condition in which the median arcuate ligament presses too tightly on the celiac artery, which is a major branch of the aorta that delivers blood to the stomach, liver, spleen, esophagus, and parts of the pancreas and duodenum, as well as the nerves in the area, the celiac plexus. As we know, ligaments in the diaphragm, they're fibrous tissue that usually connects different things together. Now the aorta has different trunks that come off of it, and one of them is the celiac trunk, or the celiac artery, which goes ahead and feeds, like I said, all those different digestive tract organs. And that comes off like this, like that, like a little branch of a tree. And around that tree, connecting the spine to the diaphragm, is the arcuate ligament, and it should wrap around the aorta like so. The problem is mine sits too low, and it presses on the artery that comes off and compresses it. Mine is quite severe. I'm not entirely sure what the percentage was. It was never really discussed with me. We just know it's very bad. It's not super uncommon, the actual compression of the artery. It's seen in about 10 to 25% of the population. But MALS, the condition which causes the symptoms I'll list shortly, is extremely rare. It's usually 1 in 50,000 people, and it's a 4-to-1 ratio of women to men. It's much more commonly found in thin, younger women, like myself. It was first observed in 1917 by Benjamin Lipschutz, the actual artery compression. And then in 1963, MALS itself was described by Pekka Tapani Harolja. And then 2 years later, in 1965, the first clinical study was done by J. David Dunbar and Samuel Mirable, which is why they call it all those different silly names, all the crazy names that they have. Symptoms of this disorder. The number one symptom is pain. And the pain is usually found in the upper quadrant. So right under the ribs is usually where I feel my pain. Mine's usually on the left-hand side, pretty much always on the left-hand side. When it's really severe, it will radiate backwards, and I'll feel it in my back, on my side, and then also I'll start to feel it on my right quadrant, the right side upper of my stomach. But mainly the left side is where I feel the most pain. It's seen mostly on if you take a deep breath in, the compression is lifted. So when I'm having severe pain, I'll take a deep breath and hold it, and it gives me a little bit of relief. It's seen more so when you let a breath out. Other symptoms tend to be stomach issues. Most patients drop significant amounts of weight. I'm one of the few cases that hasn't really dropped weight. I've actually kept a really steady, healthy weight, which is great news for me. But that's not the case. Most lose minimum 20 pounds in a short amount of time. So weight loss and pain are going to be your most common symptoms. Others include nausea, diarrhea, constipation, vomiting, loss of appetite, depending upon whether it's pain or just loss of appetite. I lose my appetite a lot. I don't really eat a whole lot anymore. Pain usually is the worst after eating, but I have constant pain now, which has progressively gotten worse, and I'll tell my story in a little bit. What else? I had a list. It's not usually alone. Many sufferers of MALS also have other comorbidities such as POTS, IBS, Ehlers-Danlos, and many other disorders. So again, I'm one of the rare cases that just has MALS, but I do have symptoms of POTS, which includes lightheadedness, dizziness, fainting, which I haven't experienced yet, thankfully, exercise intolerance, and I feel like there was more. Nope, that's it. Okay, so I have pretty much all of those symptoms, and it is a very unfun existence to be 24 and miserable. Like I was saying, so I guess the reason I wanted to make this video is because I suffered a really long time. I was extremely sick for many years, and we had no idea why. And I wanted to kind of tell you about it so that maybe you might have this and you know what to ask your doctors about. So we'll start with my story. I've been healthy my entire life. I had maybe mild anemia when I was about 13 because I had a poor diet, as all teenagers do. I ate nothing but junk food. You know, what more is there to say about that? But generally speaking, healthy. I've always been a healthy weight. I've always actually been on the thinner side. Active. I played sports. I love to dance. I've never been a sickly child. But around 16, I started to have some depression and anxiety, which is pretty typical. I do have diagnosed major depressive disorder as well as anxiety disorder and panic attacks. However, it's gotten better with age. I still struggle with it, but just as a background, this is going to come into play later. So right around 18, I was finishing up my sophomore year of college. I graduated college and high school at the same time. And I started having a really weird symptom. I would have extremely loud stomach growls. And this sounds ridiculous, but this is the first thing I remember that was weird. And from what I've understood from other MALS sufferers joining support groups and whatnot is a lot of them have the same thing where you can hear audible stomach noises. I wasn't hungry. My stomach just sounded loud, like it was growling in anger. It was ridiculous. And going into my anxiety, it would make me so embarrassed with my social anxiety that I would leave class. I was 17, 18 years old in college and walking out of my college class to go have a panic attack in the hallway because everybody around me could hear my stomach growling. And I mean, the entire class could hear it. It is that loud. This isn't like, oh, my next chair over heard me. The whole class could hear it, and it was loud, and it was kind of funny to college kids. So that was the first thing that I remember, as well as fatigue. Fatigue is something that has stayed with me for a while and has gotten progressively worse, which is very odd for a young, healthy 24-year-old. But anyway, it progressively got worse is where this is going. I started having stomach upset. First thing was dairy. Cut dairy out. I am lactose intolerant. Recently diagnosed, officially on paper. So cut dairy out. And then we thought, well, maybe it's gluten or something. So we tried to cut back on gluten. And I ended up in a relationship where I was under a lot of anxiety. And I had more and more stomach issues. And it got progressively worse. And by the time I was eating garbage, I lived in a big city, so Uber Eats was super common. I could get Chipotle, all kinds of garbage. And I ate really, really bad. And put on a little bit of weight, which is to be expected in your early 20s to gain a little bit of weight. But I moved back home and I now live in a small town. And my father was sick of hearing about it. I remember I had a salad one day at work and threw it up within a few minutes. I had constant pain. The pain was the biggest thing. It was such an odd pain. It wasn't a stomach cramping, but a sharp stabbing pain that made you lose your breath. I kind of described it as like a stitch in your side, but a lot more severe. So I went to see a gastroenterologist and said, enough is enough. I need to figure out what's going on. And I described all my symptoms to him, all my stomach upset, the pain, the fatigue, just being miserable. And he said the first thing he wanted to look at was my pancreas. Sounds about right? I have pain in the upper left quadrant of my stomach. I'm, not doing well. I couldn't figure out what food triggers it would be that would cause all these problems. I would eat chicken one night and be fine, and then the next night I get really sick. And I had cut out pretty much all fast food, anything greasy, full of dairy, because I was having so many stomach problems. And it kind of got better, but it's still there. So the doctor ordered a battery of tests. I had lots of blood work done to make sure that I was still getting the nutrition I needed. They did stool tests to see if I was breaking down fats properly. And then he ordered an endoscopic ultrasound, which is a fancy term for they put you under, they knock you out, and they shove a camera down your throat. I'm describing it for comedic effect, I'm sorry. And they did an ultrasound. And their findings were that I had mild gastritis, which was something I expected, which kind of gave me heartburn, a little bit of burning. Very, very common. The beginnings of ulcers, probably from stress. I had switched to a new position, a new job. I went from waitressing to working in sales and marketing, which was a big jump. And he saw that my pancreas was extremely inflamed in his findings. He said I had mild to moderate chronic pancreatitis. And I was recently turned 22 years old. And that was the hardest diagnosis to receive other than cancer. And for those of you who don't know, I lost my mother at a very young age. She was 37 when she passed from a rare form of cancer, which is kind of what we were expecting, was they were going to find a tumor. So I woke up and I asked for chicken tenders because Outback chicken tenders are amazing. And the nurse laughed at me and said, well, you're never going to eat those again. And now I was still in propofol paradise, still kind of out of it, so it didn't fully click with me what she said. So we drove home and I laid down for a bit and I came out and my father had made me some salad and I kind of talked to him and I'm like, so what did they find? And he's like, you don't remember. Propofol, I'm out for hours. It puts me out. And he basically told me my life was over in a way. Chronic pancreatitis is a very serious, very not fun condition to have. At 22 years old, it was a death sentence to me. That meant a low-fat diet for the rest of my life. No alcohol. I didn't smoke or do drugs anyway, but none of that. And I would progressively get worse. It was a progressive, very miserable disease to have. Now, a lot of people manage it well and they don't have a whole lot of problems, but from what I was experiencing over the next year and a half was alarming. I was very scared at 22 to be told that I couldn't live my life like a normal young woman. It was over. No alcohol, which sounds like such a silly thing to give up. Many people are sober, but for me, it was kind of hard to hear that I couldn't just be me and have fun and, not be able to eat what I wanted, And at first it didn't seem so bad. And then I started to realize how restrictive my diet was. We'd go out to eat and I would have to pull up my little nutrition calculator and go to Chili's website and look and try to find something that was about 15 to 10 grams of fat for the whole meal. I had 50 grams of fat or less per day for a year and a half, which is, to put it into perspective, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is like 17 grams of fat. So I had no peanut butter, I had no avocado, cheese, dairy, which I had already pretty much cut out, but now I couldn't have any of it. Nothing fried, I couldn't have chicken tenders, I couldn't have quesadillas, I couldn't have Mexican food, I couldn't have Chinese food, I couldn't have anything. My diet was extremely plain. When I was sick, I would make what I call cat food, and I still do it to this day. If I'm not feeling great, it goes down well for me, and that is packets of Star-Kissed tuna. They make a couple different flavors, and 90-second white rice, and I'd mix them together and eat my cat food. And that was a low-fat, high-protein meal that I could eat, and I hated every minute of being sick. And so a couple months in, I wasn't getting better. Now, this doctor that diagnosed me is very, very good at his job. What he saw is what he saw. And I saw the scans and everything, and it does look like my pancreas was inflamed. He then passed me to another doctor in the practice who I'm not going to name, despite me wanting to destroy her. Sorry, here comes the cat, and there's his butt. Can you not, please? Stevie, no. He's rubbing his face on my camera. Come here. Can you sit in my lap? Come here. Come here, fat boy. Ooh. This is Stevie Nicks. He's my gorgeous panther. He's being a butthead. Where was I? So he passed me to another doctor in his practice who had become my primary care because he was extremely busy. He's very, very good at what he does. He is an excellent, excellent GI. So they passed me to her, and she did some more tests. So she got my stool test back, she did more blood work, they tested me for SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is something I get frequently, which also goes along with MALS. Not a super miserable thing to have. It's very treatable with either Xifaxan is the most common antibiotic. It's just a bacterial overgrowth in your intestines. They give you some antibiotics, it kills it pretty quickly, and you're back to normal. It causes diarrhea, extreme bloating, which is another symptom of MALS that I have. I look pregnant. We named it Lucy at work because it really looks like I'm pregnant most days. But I would get extremely bloated, just you don't feel good. You feel very tired, fatigued, sick, which I already have fatigue, so you can imagine how bad it is. And they kept saying that my tests were coming back normal. And I remember telling my dad, oh, my test came back normal. And he goes, that's not a good response. Are they normal for what they'd expect with your condition, or are they normal across the board? Because there's a very big difference between the two. Well, I don't know. They kept saying normal, and I would try to ask, and I'd get these vague answers from the nurse. So a couple months in, pretty quickly, I think it was about a month after I was diagnosed, I went and met with my new GI, and my father came with me because he's my biggest advocate, and he's a healthcare professional, and he's amazing. So hi, Dad, if you're watching this. And he came with me because he didn't believe it. Pancreatitis is an old drinker's disease. Men in their 50s and 60s who have drank, smoked, and did drugs their entire lives are more likely to have pancreatitis than a healthy 22-year-old who's had at most 2 drinks in one night about once a month. It didn't make sense. I was tested for autonomic pancreatitis type 1 and type 2. I was tested for lupus. They couldn't find a reason. So I have idiopathic pancreatitis, which is extremely rare. Can you move your butt, please? Get down. I didn't have any of the things you would expect for someone with chronic pancreatitis. I was healthy. Look at, I look healthy, let alone all of my blood tests coming back perfect. They tested my stool for large amounts of fat, which would have shown a problem with my pancreas being able to break down the fats. I wasn't having any issues with blood sugar, no symptoms of diabetes, nothing at all. And my dad came with me to that appointment, and we met with the doctor, and he asked her if there were some alternative therapies or something I could do to heal the inflammation of my pancreas and hopefully slow down the progression of this disease, or is there anything I can do? And she looked us dead in the eyes and said, she will have this disease until the day she dies. There's nothing you can do about it. You need to get over it and live with it. And that was really hard to hear at 22, that's it. There's nothing we can do for you. And she threw Creon at me. And Creon is a pancreatic enzyme. I was suffering from pancreatic insufficiency. So I was having all of these stomach problems. So they gave me enzymes to help break down the food in the hopes that it would help me with all of my stomach issues, as well as with pancreatitis. It's an inflammation of the pancreas itself. And one of the main causes is that the pancreas creates very strong digestive enzymes that basically break down lipids and fats. That's the main focus of it from my studies and what I understand. If I get any of this wrong, I'm sorry. Spoiler alert, I don't have pancreatitis, so I kind of tried to forget all that. And I was taking these pancreatic enzymes to trick my pancreas into not to creating these enzymes, because what it was supposedly doing was creating them, and instead of them leaving the pancreas and making their way into the digestive tract, they were activating within the organ and dissolving it. So that's why low fat and why I was taking the enzymes to trick it into not creating those enzymes, so hopefully we could get the inflammation down and not cause more issues, because every time you have a flare-up, you create scar tissue and you damage the organ. And the pancreas is not an organ that can heal and regenerate. When you do that damage, it's permanent, you're done, and it's a 50-50 chance you'll develop diabetes. Not a fun road to be on at all. So she gave me Creon, and I was taking between 12 and 15 capsules of 36,000 unit Creon a day. That was 2 to 3 with every meal and 1 to 2 with every snack. And I ate multiple little meals throughout the day. I did everything right. And I got worse and worse and worse. And the answer was, take more of the Creon, take some Advil. we can start you on Lyrica for pain management, but eventually you're going to need narcotics. And that's what I was told. And I wanted to die, in all honesty. There were days where I was a fighter and I said, I'll be fine. I'm going to just raise awareness about idiopathic pancreatitis because I'm sure there's other young women who are suffering just like me and don't know what to do. And then I realized that something just wasn't adding up. All of my test results continued to come back normal. My primary care physician was shocked when I said I had pancreatitis. Every doctor I met, my podiatrist, the surgeon, the anesthetist that all did my foot surgeries were shocked. You know, this young, healthy woman, everybody kind of looked at me like, oh, were you a drug addict? Were you an alcoholic? Did you do this to yourself? It didn't make sense. So I made an appointment at the Jacksonville Mayo Clinic this past January. And boy, am I glad I did. I'm going to start crying. I met with a GI there. And when I sent my records over, he looked over them and he was shocked to see the diagnosis that I had and all of my test results. So when I went, it's about 6 hours from here where I live and I had to drive there. And he had me have an MRI. I went Tuesday, Wednesday. So Tuesday I drove up. Tuesday evening I had an MRI scan done of my entire abdomen. They did from chest to my waist. And then I had some blood work done in the morning. And I came by his office and he is a lovely doctor. I'm not going to name him in this video. I don't want to name anybody for privacy reasons, but he is a phenomenal doctor. And he sat me down and he palpated my stomach and found that I had some tenderness. And he sat me down and said, I want to be very honest and straight with you. You do not have chronic pancreatitis. And I started to bawl like a baby because after all these years of being sick and miserable and not getting better, and every time I had pain thinking I was doing damage to my pancreas and I wasn't doing anything wrong and being told it must be something I'm doing and I'm dying, I was told I wasn't. And he felt really bad because he thought I was crying because I was scared. In reality, I was super happy. And he told me that on my MRI, they noticed a compression of an artery. And so they wanted to do some further tests if I was available to stay. And he thought I might have just IBS or some food allergies or something very mild. But he really wanted to check out this compression, and so he sent me down for an ultrasound. So they sent me over, they did some velocities, they took an ultrasound of the area, you breathe in, you hold it, you breathe out, you hold it, and they measured the blood flow velocities on the celiac artery, which are extremely elevated. I think my lowest velocity was at 280 and my highest was over 400, so extremely high. And they sent me an email and said, we think you have MALS, and I'm referring you to a vascular surgeon. So I came home and I stopped taking the crayon and I started getting better. A lot of my stomach upset went away. I still have it, it still happens, but it's a lot less and I'm starting to feel a lot better. I still forget that I don't have pancreatitis. There's times where I'm at a restaurant and I'm ticking things off the menu and then I realize, oh, I can eat that now. I can eat whatever I want, which is probably dangerous thinking for my waistline, but it was great news. So I went back in February and I spent a week there with my father, and they did a couple of drink tests. They tested me for SIBO, which I was positive for again, dairy, which I was positive for, and I was negative for fructose. They tested me for fructose allergy or intolerance, and I was negative for that. Thank the Lord. They also did a full scope from mouth to the end. They did an endoscopy, a colonoscopy, and they also did a pill cam where you get to swallow the camera. They placed mine for me during the endoscopy and wore the cool little thing around my waist. It's like a sling bag, and it's a transmitter that picks up the signals from the camera. And the results from that showed my entire digestive tract was healthy. No gastritis, no ulcers, no diverticulitis, no celiac, nothing. They took biopsies, everything came back. Sorry about the jump, my phone filled up really fast. So I was saying all of my test results came back perfect. And they had me meet with my vascular surgeon, and she is phenomenal. And she told me my options. So with MALS, there really aren't too many options. It's either leave it, or you can do nerve blocks that they inject into the area, and they basically numb the nerves, and that seems to give a lot of relief to some people. But the most common route to go is surgery. I am a great candidate for surgery because I am healthy and I don't really have a whole lot of other issues. I actually don't have like any issues. So there are 3 types of surgery that are possible. There is open, where you get the zipper that goes from like mid-chest all the way down. You have the laparoscopic, where they make minimal incisions and use trocars. Or there is robotic-assisted laparoscopic, which is actually pretty cool. And the reason I am talking about all of this is because this isn't a very openly believed syndrome. A lot of the medical community doesn't want to believe it's a thing. A lot of people are told they're crazy. I was told that I had food allergies. I was told that it was my anxiety that was making me sick, that I was making it up, that I had pancreatitis. I've heard it all. And I'm here to tell you that MALS is a very real and very miserable condition to have, and more people need to believe it's a thing. And the reason I decided to make this video now is I am leaving tomorrow to go back to Jacksonville. And my cat will not shut up. Monday is a day of testing, blood work, EKG, chest x-ray, basically just a full workup to make sure I am healthy. I believe Tuesday I am having a temporary diagnostic nerve block to see how I react and if it helps with my pain. If it helps with my pain, I'm a really great candidate for surgery. I'm definitely having the surgery unless I'm unhealthy and I can't have it. I'm having this surgery because it's cutting off blood flow to vital organs, and that can cause serious damage later on in life. So we want to get this fixed. They will be doing an angiogram on Wednesday, where they use a catheter and they run dye up from one of your major arteries. I think they're using my femoral artery up to the area, pushing dye and getting some images of that to see a bit more in detail exactly what's going on in that area for the compression. And then Thursday is my pre-op consultation with my general surgeon, who will actually be performing the surgery. I am having laparoscopic. I'm not sure if it's robotic assisted or not. That is going to be one of my questions to him. I believe he is cleared in both. I'm not sure which one he's most comfortable with. He's an amazing surgeon. Many people have recommended him. The nurses in the hospital said the same thing. If they needed surgery, they would only see him. And Friday, less than a week away, I am having my surgery. So I wanted to make this video and do some follow-ups along the way as I recover. I have 3 weeks off from work. This first week for all of my diagnostic testing, and then the following 2 weeks for recovery. So hopefully I'll be able to check back in and kind of let you guys know how I'm doing. I just really wanted to make an awareness video because when I was diagnosed, I didn't find a whole lot of people talking about it on YouTube. I didn't find a whole lot of people talking about it anywhere. There seems to be like 4 or 5 different websites that have articles that are all the same. Healthline, Everyday Health, WebMD, they all have the same basic verbiage. It's not really well understood why it forms. We know what causes the actual condition with the ligament, but we don't know why it doesn't show up for many of us until later in life. Some people are healthy until their 40s. Mine started in my late teens, early 20s. We don't know if it was caused from an accident I was in or if it's just a freak thing that happened. But I wanted to come on here and use a platform that I know a lot of us use to reach out to everyone and talk about it. If you have questions, please feel free to leave comments below. I'll link all of my resources below that I've used for this video. I'm more than happy to talk about what I'm going through because it's such a rare condition. I want to do a little shout out to a Facebook group I ended up joining for my own sanity called MALS Pals. You have to be screened to be let in, but they're not, excluding anybody really. But they are a really wonderful resource. If it's something you think you have, I would reach out to them. Many of them can read scans and velocities and things if you're not sure. But the one thing that I learned, and I learned the hard way, is never be afraid to ask questions. Never be afraid to challenge your doctor when you're diagnosed with something. Be your biggest advocate, and don't be afraid to get a second opinion. Because I waited 1.5 years to get my second opinion, and by then I had suffered a lot. And I'm fortunate that I don't have any lasting damage from the medication I was on. So big thank you to my doctors over at the Mayo Clinic and their care team, because they are phenomenal. I have driven them crazy with my questions over the last couple of months. Big thank you to my dad, who has been my rock through all of this. In all honesty, he has been amazing. I know I'm a pain in the butt, but he has been by my side through all of this, and he fought for me. And if he hadn't fought for me, I wouldn't be getting better. Thank you to my next door neighbors who recommended the Mayo Clinic. If it weren't for you two, I never would have gone, 6 hours away from home to find someone to diagnose me. And another big thank you, I doubt anybody will see this from my work, but all my bosses, the owners, leadership team, my coworkers, you guys have been phenomenal for the last couple of years. I've been really, really sick, and you've been very patient with me, very supportive of me getting better. Just thank you. So I am going to go and wash this makeup off my face that I put on just for this video. Thank you all for watching. I hope any of you that aren't feeling so great will feel better soon. Just wish you guys the best. So thanks for stopping by. Hi, it's 1 week post-op. I will apologize for my voice. It is a little soft, a little sore. I've been having some issues with my throat and tonsils ever since surgery. The cat is probably going to be really annoying. Sorry. The makeup I'm wearing is eccentric. It is Ahsoka Tano based because I love the Clone Wars recently. I'm a total nerd. Anyway, so I'm catching you up on my hospital trip. So we arrived Sunday afternoon. It was quiet. We booked into our hotel. Monday was all of my pre-op blood work, scans, ECG, everything came back phenomenal. Tuesday, I was discussing my celiac block. They bring you in early in the morning. They get you super comfortable, get you all cleaned up and ready to go. IVs, they gave me Versed and fentanyl. They wheeled me into a CT scanner, and I had an interventional radiologist who did mine. He was amazing. So you lay stomach down, arms above your head like Superman, and they put you on a CT scanner. They do some initial imaging just to kind of take a look at everything, and then he used some metal clamps on my back to kind of place and find out where everything was in relation to my body to the scanner. Once that was done, I was sanitized, I was marked with a marker, and then I was numbed up with lidocaine. Lidocaine does burn. Fun fact, I never noticed it at the dentist, but when it is in your back, it sucks. But it's not too bad because once it's done burning, it will then be numb. You get kind of like that fat feeling, when you get numb and you can kind of like hit your face and you feel fat. Your back feels that way as well, fun fact. And then they used 15 gauge trocars and they pushed them in one at a time. Obviously, he didn't just skewer me like a chicken, but he did, push me out of the scanner, pull me back in, back and forth to make sure as he was going, everything was going well, because he was literally going around my spine and aorta to get in between two arteries to those ganglion and nerves to numb them. So it is very nerve-wracking the whole time. That was really hard for me, was knowing that he was in my back, and if he made one wrong move, I could be either paralyzed or I could bleed out. It was very, very scary, but he did a phenomenal job. I got to see my scans from the CT. They did send them to me, and it is terrifying to see how close he is with those trocars. Once they were in and they were where he wanted them, he went ahead and slid the needles in and numbed the area with ropivacaine. Went very well. You don't feel any of that. The whole time he was thrilled at how everything was going. The whole procedure took about an hour between rolling in and rolling out. They put me in recovery for 2 hours. They wanted to watch me because they just put 2 giant needles in my back. I was then fed a sandwich, turkey sandwich, a little container of peaches, and a piece of pound cake. and I ate the whole thing with a Coke with no pain for the first time in 2 years. My pain was never really constant, but it did get more reliable, I guess you could say. I could expect when it was going to happen. And after meals, it was definitely getting worse. But I could never eat that amount of food in one sitting without pain. It was amazing. So I had my hopes up. I felt really, really good about it. They put me in a wheelchair. They went ahead and wheeled me out. I was a little dopey, which they gave me Versed. Yeah. So I met with my vascular surgeon, sorry. She is amazing. She is an incredible woman and an amazing doctor. And I owe her everything because she was my biggest advocate through all of this. So we met to discuss the angiogram. She scared me a little bit when she told me that my chances are 30% people get better, 30% stay the same, and 30% actually get worse after their surgery. All I could think was that I'm having this massive surgery. They're cutting into my body super close to my heart, and I might not get better or I might get worse, and I don't know if I can live with that. And I broke down and I was really upset and really scared, but my dad kept reminding me that she wasn't trying to scare me, she was trying to manage my expectations because she didn't want me to go into this thinking it was a cure if it wasn't going to be. So Wednesday was my angiogram. That was actually a pretty easy procedure, a lot easier than the block. Again, Versed, fentanyl, they dope you up, so you're in la la land, you feel fine. They didn't give me a whole lot of fentanyl at first, obviously, because they wanted to replicate the pain. I didn't realize that's what they were doing with the angiogram. So you get in your gown. They have plastic gowns now with ports that they actually hook up to air hoses with hot air, so you can stay warm because procedure rooms are ridiculously cold. So they wheeled me in, they got me all cleaned up. You have to use the chlorhexidine wipes and all that stuff to make sure you are like sanitized. So she went ahead, she put me under the CT machine, she marked the spot, she numbed me with lidocaine, which has become my greatest enemy, by the way. I hate lidocaine. And you can actually feel that because they went in my femoral artery, which is in the groin. I could feel the lidocaine burn all the way up my side and my back. Again, my biggest fear was moving, but you are strapped to that table. They box you in so that when the CT scanner moves around you, you won't get hit, but you basically become a burrito, which was great for me because I'm a bundle of anxiety. When I get nervous, I wrap up in a blanket like a burrito. Anyway, she numbed it. She went ahead and she pushed a catheter from my groin all the way up towards my heart. Imaging went really, really well. And then they pushed some medicine to basically try and replicate the pain that I experienced. So they did it 3 times. And the first 2 times, I'd say it was maybe like a 3 or a 4. You could just kind of feel it. It's very sudden, very burning type of pain. But the 3rd time she did it was an 8 or a 9. I yelled out in pain. It made me nauseous. It hurt so bad, which was actually a really good sign, because that means I was a really good candidate for this surgery. So the doctor was super pleased. They gave me some pain meds. They wheeled me back to recovery. That was probably the hardest thing, is I had to lay flat for 6 hours. Fun fact, that is not a fun time. I also get extremely nauseous from narcotics, particularly fentanyl, Percocet, Dilaudid, Oxy, any of that stuff makes me really, really nauseous and lightheaded. I started to get a headache because I didn't have caffeine. They kept trying to give me other meds, didn't work, blah, blah, blah. Once that was done, they put gauze and a Tegaderm over it and they send you home. Went back to the hotel, recovered, it was easy. Moved really slow because they didn't want to pull on the Tegaderm, but they encourage walking about 24 hours after your procedure. So I did get up and walk, and we met my surgeon. So before I even get there, fun fact, I am allergic to the adhesive in Tegaderm. Didn't know. I still have the contact dermatitis on my leg from where they put the Tegaderm. Apparently my mother had it, and so do I. I met my surgeon. The vascular surgeon had been extremely hopeful of this procedure. My laparoscopic surgeon, he's a general surgeon, was a little less enthusiastic. I think that's just kind of his personality. But he has some of the best stats I've ever heard. He does 7 to 8 of these surgeries a year, basically 1 a month. He has never gone from laparoscopic to open. Never had to do an open surgery for MALS. and has never nicked an artery and needed to push blood. I mean, this is like a phenomenal surgeon. He is one of the best. And he was confident in doing this. He was like, "You're healthy, I can do it." He pushed around on my belly and was like, "Yep, we're gonna do it tomorrow morning." So Friday, I was a nervous wreck, but I was really, really excited to feel better. They did tell me that I couldn't go home the day after. I could go back to the hotel, but I wasn't safe for driving 5 hours. So I had to stay until Wednesday. The surgery was easy. I mean, they gave you Versed, as always. It's pretty much standard. And they got me pretty dopey. I did run into an issue where they couldn't get the IV in my hand where they wanted, so I got stabbed like a lot. And then they finally got one in the crook of my arm, and it blew, which was painful, so they put another one in. They also gave me an A-line, and if you can see that, that's a week after. I am extremely bruised. It doesn't really hurt, but it does look really nasty. I got 5 incisions. They're small. I will insert a picture day after here. Fun fact, I'm also allergic to Dermabond, so I have contact dermatitis. I'll post a picture right here of me a week after I just took this. But the surgery was super successful. He said my artery popped right back up. I'll actually insert a picture here, trigger warning, it's kind of gross. Here's a picture of the celiac artery after he cut the ligament. So super successful. I woke up, I hung out post-op. They pushed Dilaudid is what they were using to manage my pain. I did warn them ahead of time that I do get nauseous, so have Zofran handy. They didn't push the Zofran when they pushed the Dilaudid, and I got really, really queasy. The first thing I said when I woke up that I remember was, "Give me a pillow." And they were like, "Okay," and they gave me a pillow because the gas they use to paralyze you does make you cough a little bit. So I put that over my belly and just hacked and got all of that up out of my lungs. And they were like, "Wow, you're really smart for somebody who's been drugged." And I hung out in recovery, so then I got nauseous. They make queasies, essential oil things that you can sniff that does help a lot until the Zofran kicked in, but IV Zofran is like wicked fast. So after that, they went ahead and they wheeled me down to short stay. I was on a ward. They didn't have private rooms because of all of the COVID nonsense going on, which sucked, but it was fine. I had broth and a Coke, and I kept it down, no problem, no nausea. Pain was really minimal. Most of the pain I was kind of feeling was like my back and tightness. And then it was probably, my dad came up late in the afternoon. My surgery was first thing in the morning. Dad came in the afternoon, I want to say like 4 o'clock. He hung out. They actually let him stay past visiting hours to stay with me because I was a little out of it. But what they didn't warn me about is deferred pain that you can get. And 35 to 80% of people who have laparoscopic surgery have it. I'll list the resource Dad sent me. It's actually for a gynecological surgery, but it's the same concept. It has something to do with the gases that they pump into your stomach so that they have better visibility. The change in the temperature of the CO2 causes cell damage and cell death. And for whatever reason, it aggravates the phrenic nerve. I got the most horrific pain ever in my shoulders and right here. And I couldn't breathe. It hurt so bad. I started to hyperventilate. I started to panic. I was yelling at my dad as much as I could, "Call for help, call for help, call for help." And I was already having trouble taking deep breaths. It's still kind of hard. It's going to take a little while just because I'm tight from surgery, but it's a lot better. I was just a nervous wreck. So they came in, they said it's completely normal. My dad rubbed my shoulders for about an hour. It didn't help. I mean, it was just like, it would start to feel better and then you'd lay back and it was bad. So they ended up giving me Dilaudid 2 hours early because the pain was so bad I couldn't relax or calm down. I was walking pretty much immediately after surgery. After a couple hours, I was up and walking around, going to the bathroom and just living life. And then I had blenderized chicken soup and Coke and an Italian ice. The one thing I did notice is the menu didn't have a whole lot of dairy-free options for liquid foods, which is really hard because I'm lactose intolerant and I did not want to eat ice cream after I just had, no. So I actually didn't get to finish my dinner because the pain started during dinner. I think it was around like 6 or 7 o'clock. So dad ended up leaving. I was doing okay. I was on them about my medicine. They gave me, so Zofran you can only take, I think it's 6 to 8 hours depending upon the type. I think it was 6 hours, and my pain meds were every 4 hours. But I get really nauseous, so I wanted to make sure I was taking pain medicine at the same time as my nausea antiemetic. So they were giving me Phenergan alternating with the Zofran. Now Phenergan put me to sleep, and I mean like 3 hours out cold. It just completely knocked me out, which was cool. So then they gave me my pain medicine. I went to sleep. It was around 11 o'clock. I woke back up with the shoulder pain really, really bad. Couldn't relax, couldn't lay down. I mean, it was like 2 hours after they pushed the medicine, I'm in like severe pain. So we tried doing like a heating pad. The heating pad did absolutely nothing. Tried walking the halls. They tried hot tea. Nothing worked. I just ended up falling back asleep in excruciating pain. And I woke up around 1 o'clock needing to go to the bathroom because you're on a constant IV. So, I mean, you were flushing your kidneys out. So the nurse got up, she took me to the bathroom, and I had no pain. It was completely gone. So I was really lucky. It only lasted a few hours. Some people it lasts days. But after that, I was pretty much good. I woke up in the morning. I wanted solid food, and I was very angry when they told me no. So I had, and they didn't have a whole lot on the liquid diet first thing in the morning that was dairy-free. So I had chicken broth again and a cup of coffee, and I held it down just fine. So for lunch, they let me have solid food, and I had some chicken and spinach with rice, another Italian ice, and a Coke, and I was so happy that I could have solid food. And I ate it, no problem, no nausea, nothing. And they sent me home. So they gave me another dose of my medicine. Dad took me back to the hotel. They prescribed Oxy and Zofran. The sublingual, or not sublingual, but the dissolving ones, they are disgusting. They put great flavor in them. Whoever designed that, I want a word with you. Took me back to the hotel. Everything was fine. I set alarms on my phone to wake up and take the pain medicine. Sunday, I woke up. I was a little nauseous. Not bad. I tried to eat, and that was, I had pound cake from Starbucks. Don't recommend. I will never eat lemon flavored cake ever again. It just made me feel icky. I just did not feel good. Stomach stuff, narcotics do constipate you. I was able to clear out my bowels that day. I felt better. I switched to Tylenol midway through Sunday because I just really didn't want to be taking narcotics and Zofran and all that kind of stuff. It felt like it was just really unnecessary. So I switched to Tylenol. Did fine with that for pain. It was, what day was it? Monday was fine. It was hard getting up and moving around. Pain really isn't that bad. It's just you have to get up and you're tired and you just want to lay down and do nothing. I also am a stomach sleeper, so I had to sleep sitting up and I just hated it. But I mean, you're just so tired from being through all of that. We're amazed at how much color is back in my skin. I've always been pale, but I was like pasty, ghostly, gray. After surgery, I already look a lot better. I actually have color to me. Can't tell from my face because I put makeup on, but it was Tuesday I woke up because Wednesday was my checkout. So Tuesday I woke up. I felt warm and I was a little concerned. So Dad came over and he felt me and he said, "Yep, you feel warm." So he went and got a thermometer. And with Tylenol in my system, my temperature was at 99.3, I think it was. So a little high, but still relatively normal. We Googled it. It's normal to have a low temperature after surgery. They said if I had 100.3 to call and come in. So kept an eye on it. Tylenol was out of my system. I was still in 99.6 and 7, I think it was. But that evening it did spike to 100.5 at one point. We were nervous. We called the doctor. The one that was on call, he was really, really nice, but he basically said, I'd keep an eye on it. It's spiking that high. I would normally say, come in. He's like, we have a lot of COVID cases here right now. I don't think this is COVID. This could be an infection. It could be nothing. Keep an eye on it. but go ahead and give her Tylenol. So I took 1 Tylenol and dropped right back down to the 99s. And by Wednesday morning, I was in the 98s, completely normal again. We're not sure why it spiked suddenly on the 4th day, but after that, I was okay. Most important thing to do is drink fluids, and a lot of them. I'm already dehydrated. I actually have a scalloped tongue and the inside of my mouth is inflamed from dehydration. Not fun. So make sure you're drinking a lot of fluids, and I mean a lot because you've been on an IV, you need to keep up your fluid intake. It's very important. So Wednesday morning, we packed our bags. We were so excited to go home. I missed my cat, and I got to see my surgeon. So he looked at my incisions. He said they looked really good, but I was allergic to the Dermabond. So he picked it off, which didn't really hurt. It was more nerve-wracking than anything else, but my incisions are pretty much healed. And the itching got a lot better, and my breathing actually got a lot better. So I was wondering if the Dermabond actually had something to do with that, like I was having a real allergic reaction to it to some degree. Could be totally making that up. He went ahead and took my heart rate, and I was extremely tachycardic. So sitting, I was at like 115, 120, and then standing, it skyrocketed to like 145. So that's a bad sign of dehydration. So he looked at me and said, "You're not going home." So I had to call the hotel, book another night. My father was going to kill me because I wasn't drinking enough fluids. He went and got Gatorade. I had to go do a chest x-ray to make sure, because of my temperature, they wanted to make sure there was no infection in my lungs or anything. And because I was having trouble breathing still, some chest pain and things like that. Nothing severe, but you know, they wanted to double check, and some blood work. I wasn't bleeding out. My hematocrits were great. I was healthy, just dehydrated. So chugged some Gatorade, went back upstairs, met him again, and my heart rate was much better. I mean, it was still, I think, 150 and standing. So he was worried, but he could tell I really wanted to go home, and I was in tears, and I just wanted to go home. So he actually let me go and said, "Yep, you can go home." He wasn't happy about it, but we got in the car. I drank a ton of fluids the whole way home. We stopped a couple times for me to walk. I feel like a pregnant lady because I'm still kind of bloated from surgery. It's a lot better, but I definitely am pretty puffy. So I did my little waddle for a little bit, and then we finally got home. About half hour from home, we find out our AC died, which is great. So we had to call somebody to fix that. So I got home. No nausea, did pretty fine, got home. Appetite didn't come back right away. I definitely really wasn't hungry until I was home, probably because I'm sick of rotisserie chicken and white rice. But since then, everything has been really, really good. Last night I woke up around 10 o'clock. I had fallen asleep, I woke up around 10 o'clock. I had a really sharp pain in my chest. I think a muscle spasmed, but I thought I was dying, so I woke up my father. But everything's great. Everything looks really, really good. So a week post-op, I'm having no pain with eating. My appetite is back. I don't feel tired. I keep getting notifications. Please leave me alone. There we go. I don't feel tired. I don't feel fatigued. I just feel good. I actually have energy, appetite. I feel good. It's the only way to put it. So I think I had a successful surgery. I do have to go in a month and have an ultrasound done to check the velocities of the artery. But I think I'm cured. And that's really overwhelming to say because I was told that I might not get better. A lot of people on a support group said that they didn't get better, they got worse later on. But I'm really, really hopeful that I'm cured. So I'm ready to start exercising again soon. I've got another week off of work to continue to rest. I definitely need it. But yeah, so far so good. So thanks for following me on this journey. I can't believe a week post-op and I'm feeling as good as I am and moving around. But yeah, it went really, really well. So I will maybe see you guys again. I don't know if I should start doing some makeup videos and things that I used to. Might be a good outlet for me now that I actually have the energy for something like that. But yeah, so far so good. So I hope you guys are having a fantastic day and everything's going great for you. For those of you who are suffering with MALS, this is somebody who has a success story. It happens. People really do get better and they live normal lives, and it happens. So don't lose hope. Don't give up. There's hope. All right, well, bye.